We are live. We're here, Reem. We're returning this week for the Women Who Do series. We took a pause last week as we felt that, taking the time to process these major events was absolutely essential. But we're excited to be back this week and continue discussing community and careers with these outstanding women who are making an impact. So, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time this week, Women Who Do is a series dedicated to highlighting inspiring conversations within these historical times and as we also begin to, rebuild. But if this is your first time watching, I'm Gre Rubinstein and I'm Anne Klein's granddaughter. So this series was created to both celebrate and uphold Anne's legacy as she was a mover and shaker that's empowered women everywhere, especially myself. And during these difficult times, her message about strength is absolutely critical. So, like my grandmother, today's guest has quite similarly been a powerful force in the fashion industry. And she's left her mark not just with her beautiful designs, but with a deeper message about confidence, hard work, and ambition. So, Reem, thank you so much for being here today. As I am also an alumni from the Fashion Institute of Technology and a bride that's currently planning a wedding and in the midst of the craziness of wedding planning, I know I'm so excited to be here and speak with you today. So I would love to get started by, hearing a little bit more about your journey as a fashion designer and some of those, career-making moments throughout, your professional career.
Well, thank you first, Jessie, for having me. And it's an honor to be part of this conversation. I believe in women, and I'm here as a woman talking about women. I started my career as a young child. I was raised and born in Beirut, Lebanon, and my mother really kind of guided me throughout my career. And the reason why I am here today and I am what I am is because of my mother. So she taught me from a very early age how to be ambitious, how to look for fabric. So we used to go to the souks and we used to buy our fabric, but she taught me how to handle the money. So she taught me how to find my fabrics, how to pay for them, how to bargain. And she also, out of her kind heart, she was able to get a live-in seamstress. And I recall that this woman was almost a homeless woman, and she brought her into our house, and she was the dressmaker. So I used to design my clothes, and then there was this dressmaker living with us, and that's how I started also my career as a young child. On the other hand, I also had a grandmother who was fascinated by making flowers. So we used to take the leftover fabrics from my dresses and we used to make flowers. Spent hours and hours on the kitchen table making flowers with my grandmother. So the household, the way I was brought up, led me to be who I am today.
We always, in every single episode, we talk about who are the women who have inspired you. And I think a common thread through a lot of these conversations is just the powerful role our family plays in developing who we are. I know I take so much inspiration from my grandmother, and she's taught me how to be headstrong and direct and confident. And, my mother's also an entrepreneur, so I completely relate to everything that you just discussed.
It's key. It's really key to be surrounded by people who believe in you and who give you the strength. And but first of all, you have to find your own path as well. It's not just like you're given, and we need to rely on the people that are around us. I think they give us the path, and we have to find our own selves. But they give us the strength to find it.
Mm-hmm. So you knew from a very early age that you wanted to work in fashion. You wanted to be a designer.
No, not really. Actually, I was brought up like this. I had a live-in seamstress. We used to go to the souks on Saturdays, and I was fascinated by vintage. So, for example, at age 11, I recall very well that time when a Bedouin came knocking at our door, and she had a bag of vintage dresses from Bedouins. And my parents, in order to help the woman, brought her into the house and told her, what do you need? And she wanted just to sell her dresses. So they gave me petty cash, some of mine. I collected some of my money and some from my parents, and they made me buy my first vintage dress. So I started to collecting. So they were also educating me on how to start collecting things and to appreciate the old and to appreciate the women that are working out there. So those elements in my early childhood kind of helped me in order to understand what I wanted to be. I wasn't really fascinated by fashion, but fascinated by helping out, by understanding vintage, by understanding fabric, sewing, all of that, and the flower making that my grandmother helped me, you know, create.
Wow. Was there, I mean, I know I read a story that you created a friend's wedding dress in 3 days, and that story was like so amazing to me because I've been going to all of my fittings, and this process takes forever. So I was wondering, like, is there one critical point in your career where you were like, "This is what I want to do. This is my calling"?
Actually, what a great question. Yes, I really started my career by accident, but I did go to FIT and I had the foundation of all of this. But one day, a friend of mine kind of came to me and says, I met somebody and I think he asked me to marry him. And I said, why don't you just tell him yes and go on with your life? You know, this is the time for you and it would be a good future for you. She says, I will go on one condition, you make my wedding dress. I never was in business. I wasn't at that time, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna make your wedding dress. But what I did, I put on that wedding dress flowers that I had hand done with green petals, and at that time there was none of this out there. So it was something brand new, a concept that wasn't out there. And I went to her wedding, and it was at the De Crillon Hotel in Paris. So it was a big, very important wedding. And when I saw that the reaction on this dress was so fascinating, I came back home. Luckily, I had taken a picture of the dress on a hanger because I couldn't afford to put it on a model. And that picture, when I came back from Paris from the wedding, I sent it to the New York Times, and it made the New York Times. So for me,
Wow.
just my first picture, my first attempt, it means I had something. And that was the beginning. So there was always a beginning.
I love that story. That is such a great story.
It's fun.
Um, so as a bride myself, I know the industry has been severely impacted by the crisis and everything going on. What are some trends that you've been seeing out there as couples kind of, readjust their plans?
What I'm seeing right now is not really firm because we're not out of the whole situation. I think we're just seeing a trend of course, the brides are postponing their weddings. You know, weddings and brides, it's an emotional thing, and you know it as a future bride. You know that this is an emotional thing, and you don't want to just dismiss your wedding or wearing your wedding dress. And what I see is that there is postponement, there is an uncertainty on the date, but there is postponement, and I feel that each bride really wants to end up having a wedding, whether the wedding is going to be the same as she had planned before, perhaps not. Maybe the wedding is going to be more emotional. Maybe it will have more a personal contribution. It will be something different. So we're going to start seeing a different kind of weddings created by the brides and their situation. And I think that's going to be fascinating to see. It's too early to see what the trend will be, but there will be something.
Definitely. I mean, I think even like what we're doing today, in the last 2 months, I went to one Zoom wedding for a very close friend, and I actually had my bridal shower on Zoom with all of my friends, and they made it so special. So I think it's amazing that even though a lot of people have had to postpone their weddings and change the dates, that we have this technology at our fingertips that allows us to still kind of connect with the people we love and want to be there for this special moment.
Totally. We are born creative. We're going to find a way on how we're going to celebrate our weddings. And I think each one is going to come up with their own idea and concept. And I think I'm going to take the positive side of it. It's going to be fascinating.
I agree. I think as people rebook, it'll be interesting to see. I think with any kind of major change in our social climate, political, just everything that you always see it reflected in fashion. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how this takes shape.
Absolutely.
So that leads me to my next question. You have been named as the genius by fellow fashion designers and visionaries. Where do you draw inspiration from for your iconic designs?
I think I built myself this way. I think I have a load of imagination. I look at things in a different eye. I don't look at the table as a table or the chair as a chair. I always see the potential of it. I see that this table could become a door, or that chair could become a table, or things like that. So, and I keep my imagination alive, and things can stay in my head for years or a decade even, and then they pop up and I would say, oh, I remember that concept I had 10 years ago. It's time for me to use it. Or I remember that vividly, that color in a movie, that dress was so vivid in my head. So I kind of recollect images and ideas and use them as I go along. And I try to make things happen in a very magical way. Hard to explain, but for me, I live in a magical world, and I try to create and see things like that.
So it sounds like you really, even from our last conversation with Dr. Laurie Santos, we kind of touched on having gratitude for just everything that life has to offer. And I feel like that kind of lends itself really well to what you're saying, is seeing beauty and appreciating the things around you makes you somebody that is able to, just be inspired.
Totally. I think, you walk on the street, you might find things are not as good as they are, but then I will always find a spot, something that anyone else wouldn't have looked at, and I would say, but that thing could become, that thing is the potential. And this is the way of thinking, is the imagining. I want to say something about a trend that has been happening for a while now in the bridal industry. And one of them fascinates me, that it became a trend. And if you see a lot of embroideries in a triangular shape, on whether on veils or on trains of dresses or on sleeves, this did come from my own imagination, but it became a worldwide trend. You see it everywhere right now. But I remember looking at my old closet that was from the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and it has a triangular shape at the top of it, beautifully embedded with silver and mother of pearl. And I envisioned this as an embroidery on the veils, and this is a trend that's been happening now. So things like that are, in my imagination.
I have a really massive stack of bridal magazines, and it's apparent your designs are just so gorgeous and so different from everything else that's out there.
Thank you, Jessica. That's so sweet.
So Reem, I wanted to ask you, you were such an inspiration to so many people out there that are trying to make their mark in the fashion industry. What is some advice that you would give to someone hoping to make a difference, make an impact in this industry? And yeah, what are some words of advice that you would give to them?
First of all, I believe that each one needs to find their own talent. We're all talented somehow in something. And if you really recognize that talent, that's your first step. Whether it's fashion design or anything else, you have a talent. And I think you need to kind of take that talent and apply knowledge to it, and learn it, understand it fully. And you have to have a vision and a plan and a path to get to your goal. and you have to have ambition. You have to be self-satisfied. You have to be grateful to yourself and to what you are able to do. And you have to really work hard in order to get and to reach your goal. And the road is not always easy, so you need to understand that there will be bumps, there will be many obstacles, and it's up to you to really move and maneuver around the obstacles and reach your goal.
I love that. Do you have, so I guess what I try to do the same thing, and something that I've found that really helps me is I create almost like a vision presentation of my goals. And every single morning I read them over to remind myself of what my vision is and what my goals are. And I found that that kind of helps jumpstart my day with a ton of just positivity and energy and excitement, and just coming back to, what my plan is. Is there something that you do every day that you find really grounds you and helps you kind of stay on your path?
Yes, I love what you just said. I think it just put some vision in front of you. For me, I just every morning I just say the word thank you. Thank you for today. Thank you for yesterday. Thank you for being here. It's for me being thankful for everything I have and uh, everything I've acquired, and where I was and where I am today is enough for me to keep going. And I think that's really what gives me the power to keep going, is just being thankful and grateful for what is today.
I love that. Gratitude, I mean, it's the key to everything.
Absolutely. And satisfaction. You have to be satisfied with what you have.
I agree. I mean, there's so many reports out there that, I mean, from it doesn't necessarily, you could be uber wealthy or someone that's not, and it's really just taking the time to look at your life, see, that you have a beautiful family that loves you, that's healthy, and you can wake up every day and appreciate that, and it makes the world of difference to your day.
Absolutely. And that doesn't stop you from dreaming.
Mhm.
You have to always dream, because you need the goal always to look forward to. So in order to be happy, you have to have a goal, and dreaming, dreaming of what is the future.
I I couldn't agree more. Um, so we have a bunch of amazing comments that are up here. Let's see. Paige Jimenez asks, how does your background and culture inspire your designs?
No one can ignore their background and their culture. I think it's embedded in me. And as I mentioned, for example, the Ottoman Empire closet inspired me and eventually inspired the whole bridal industry. So I think, of course, I have a rich culture, and it's an inspiration. And even being wherever I am today and having traveled the world, having reached, or having had experience in multiple cultures, helped me to be what I am today. I've lived in the Far East, so I embedded some of the things that I saw over there, and I've been in New York for so many years, so I have that New York attitude as well. So it's a combination of cultures.
That's awesome. You have the New York flair, the directness. um, That's amazing. Well, I wanted to, jumping back for a minute, there was one other question I really wanted to hear more about. And this is actually a perfect segue. You have been such an integral part of the Bridges of Understanding Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that organization, how you got involved, and what this cause means to you?
But I was really honored to be recognized by the Bridges of Understanding Foundation for my participation in an effort to promote a better world between the world of the Americas and the Middle East. And it was an opportunity for me to help the young generation understand the two different cultures. And I think this was my participation, and they really recognized my effort to build that bridge. And for me, that was a major recognition, and I was very honored and happy to be part of this.
That's amazing. And it goes back to what you've talked about, throughout our conversation, is how important it is for you to take both cultures and kind of marry them.
Totally. Very much. Very important.
Well, I think we have time for one last question. Let's see. Okay, so Monique Sedlar asks, you've accomplished as you're so accomplished as a designer, and you're such an inspiration as a woman. What's on the horizon for 2020 and beyond for you and the brand? I like that question.
I like that question. It's
a hard question.
It's a very hard question. The world isn't, it's in a situation. So it's hard to tell what my goal is for 2020, because I'm on a moving ground, and I think being flexible, understanding the situation, and being open-minded that things could change in front of me is key. And so I think my goal is going to be changing as everything changes around me. I'm a survivor, and I hope that everybody can survive that whatever is happening around them, and that you're just being flexible and adapt and change things as they go.
I think this is a question we'll have to maybe revisit in a couple months. Well, Reem, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so amazing. I mean, you're an icon for me. Going to FIT, and I've been working in fashion literally since I was 14 in retail, and especially now with everything in my life as a bride. This has been really, really great. Thank you.
Jessie, it's amazing to be part of this, and I wish you the best as a bride and as a woman and as a Korean woman. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you. Everyone out there listening, thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you for your amazing comments. We are so excited to return next week with Ilfanesh Dara. She is an American actor, activist, and humanitarian. So we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 12 p.m. We'll be on Facebook Live. So don't forget to tune in. Can't wait to see you next week. Thank you again, Reem.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Take care.